Hey guys, welcome to another fantastic episode. We have got a great interview for you with somebody that I don't actually really like. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But this whole episode is going to be challenging your perceptions, your beliefs, your current values. And I know that because I existed in this way for nigh on 10 years, built an almost 7-figure business that I fundamentally hated. I was the bottleneck. My mindset was the biggest trap. And having met this gentleman, Jason Graystone, back in maybe 2016, 2017, the first time I actually met you, I thought, what a dick. But I realized that was actually my problem and my internal beliefs and behaviors, because at the time, the lifestyle that I had existed in, the father that I'd seen work consistently, not delegating, not letting go, building a £10 million business where he was still the biggest challenge, and surrounding myself with other mentors, advisors, business people who were all about the hustle and grind and not working smart and not working efficiently. Fast forward to now, earlier this year, I had the pleasure of sitting on a snowboard trip with Jason, who was learning to ski and snowboard. And actually in the conversation, I realized that we're both quite introverted while we do these things for personal brand, and I can stand on a stage and everything else. You know, I'm quite introverted. I like my own space. If I had the choice of going out with my friends or my wife's going out for an evening, I'd rather sit on the sofa on my own, put the kids to bed and watch a movie. Other people sap my energy rather than me needing to take energy from other people. And long story short was, I actually realized that everything that we've created in Systemize and Scale, the beliefs and the values that have fundamentally changed, as I've spoken to you about before, since my mum died in 2022, watching her passing away, realizing how short life is, and also going back to work 3 days after my first daughter was born. These have been pivotal changes in my mindset. And when I read this book, Always Free, it's everything that you need to adopt and learn and listen and put into your lives to fundamentally change your beliefs. So that's hopefully kind of setting a bit of a scene for you. Jason, thanks for coming and joining us on the show today.
Mate, thanks for letting me in. I know you didn't want me to come here because you don't like me. No, I appreciate it, mate. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation for sure.
Yeah, it was good. It really kind of, a lot of what you've said has resonated, and watching your Instagram stories at times when I've messaged you has been still highly frustrating this year. Right. Where you look at your calendar and it's like, Jason has nothing booked in. And I'm like, what do you do with all this spare time? And he's like, play guitar, ride my motorbike, hang out with my kids and do this. And I'm like, I am still nowhere near there yet, but that is certainly one step closer than I was in 2016. So the whole episode of today is we just want to change my audience's beliefs.
Right.
And get them out of the hamster wheel and the trap that financial services has.
Mm-hmm.
So to kick things off, what is this always free mentality, mindset, belief, behaviors all about?
Yeah, so Always Free is, first of all, you're bang on. When I started networking back in 2016, 17, that was the first I'd ever networked. And at that point, the only reason I got out to network was because I had nothing to do. And I started speaking to various entrepreneurs, business owners. And after, a couple of years of doing that, I realized quite quickly that there was actually people in that group that were born into money, and they had all the money in the world. They could do whatever they want, go wherever they want, but they were so unhappy because they were trying to find their purpose, trying to build a business that was suited to them, that gave them meaning. And because they were trying to please and appease everyone else, they didn't feel free. And then I met people who were really good at earning money, yourself being one of them. You could earn the money, but a lot of the entrepreneurs that I was talking to, they didn't have any money. And it was like, oh, you're great earning it, but it's like, it's going in and out and in and out. And it's like a constant stress. So they weren't free. And then I also met people who were just like, they knew themselves really well. They were really happy and content in themselves. They were doing a job that they loved, but they weren't earning money. And then they felt stressed because they were. So I realized that, freedom isn't just to do with money. I think people, primarily say, once I'll be financially free, I'll be free. But it's not true, because if you're living a life that isn't congruent to who you are and your own values, then you're never going to feel free. You're going to have resentment, So Always Free is about identifying where your lack of freedom is in mind, movement, and money, and then understanding how to improve that feeling of freedom so that you move further towards this feeling of being totally free. And that's what the book's about. So my son's here now doing some photography and videography. You know, you mentioned that I don't do anything. I mean, we don't do it. I mean, it's literally me and him mess about in a studio, you know, and it really is just that. But the important thing to recognize is I got to that position because that was the dream life that I had in my mind at a young age. And what I've witnessed is if you don't have a milestone where you think that's where I'll be content, when you get there, you can actually appreciate it. But if you don't have that, you're just like, I'm not there yet. I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm not where I want to be yet. But you don't actually know where you want to be. So because you haven't defined where you want to be, you're never grateful or content when you pass it and miss it, you know, and then it's like chase. And that's what I witness all the time. I see billionaires doing this. I see, you know, people who are earning. There was a guy last week I was speaking to who said, I want to get 50 million. That's the next target in the business. And I was like, that's a round number. I said, well, any reason why it's 50 million? And he was like, oh, well, it's just the next, you know, that's the next number. That'll make me that. And I was like, well, you know, to get to that level, you're going to have to sacrifice time of your kids, time of your wife, and all this kind of stuff. Sacrifice today's happiness for tomorrow's profit. And it turns out that the real reason he wanted it was just to prove some ex wrong or some like boss that he had before wrong. And it's like, really? So you're a slave to that person's thoughts. And that is not freedom, you know. And once you hit that target, you won't feel happy because you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for them. And what's the next thing? And the next thing and the next thing. And before you know it, your life's gone, you know. So it's really important to have your life you live today is probably a dream for when you was younger, or your historical, you know, version of you. And unless you can get to a point where you go, I'm happy here, you know, I could live every day for the rest of my life like this. And then you might choose to go and do a bit more and hustle again and go to the next level. But unless you get that point in your mind, you run the danger and the risk of just always chasing something and then never being content. So freedom, always free, is being content in yourself, a moment in time where you can appreciate, you know, living every day like that for the rest of your life without ever having, you know, regret or so. That's it.
So if I were to think about all the property investors that I've spent my time with, you know, speaking on stages, being around all these people, they chuck around the financial freedom as like this big thing. And it's always like, what number do you need to wake up with that you technically, you know, have passive income in?
Yep.
Yeah. Whereas we know if you're doing property investing, it's not bloody passive. You might be getting 10 grand in, but then your boiler breaks and your house falls down and you've got a whole mountain of shit to sort out.
Yeah.
But is that essentially what you're talking about in terms of always being free? You've talked about the £50 million, which is a revenue goal. Mm-hmm. Are you basically saying, right, what amount of money do I need to wake up with that happens irrespective of everything else in my life, and then I'm always free? Is that what that really means? Give us the lowdown.
Right. So that's the financial freedom element, right?
Yep.
So let's take it back to mental freedom first.
Yep.
What you're talking about is these people chasing passive income or chasing some kind of financial freedom. The reason they're chasing that is basically they're trying to escape the life that they live in right now. That's the elephant in the room, right? You should never want to escape your life. And if you are, you're off track to what you should be doing in the first place. And the reason you're off track is because you're pleasing and appeasing someone else, looking up to someone else, trying to chase. You've got someone on a pedestal that you're trying to mimic, you know, and you're trying to do stuff that isn't aligned to who you truly are as a person.
Yeah.
So unless you're mentally free, you'll never be free. You'll never be financially free. You'll never be, you know, anything free because you're not being who you want to be. I told a story the other day. I don't know if you saw it, but I said, you know, when you're 7 years old, you're this kid who's like doing everything they want to do. You choose to go and have an ice cream, play with your mates, football, BMX or whatever, right? And then your parents call you in for dinner and a shower and it's like, you got to go to bed now. And you're like, oh, you know, when I'm an adult, I'll do what I'll be free. No one will be telling me when to go to bed, you know? And then as they become adults, you see them go further and further away from freedom, further and further away from that 7-year-old kid. And there was a time when I went to Disney in 2012 with my sons and, we went into the ticket kiosk and he punched a ticket and he went, go and be a kid again. And I just remember thinking, that is what everyone here wants. Like they just want to go back to being that kid who had all the freedom, who could be themselves, who could do what they want, you know. And we don't maintain that through our life. And the reason we end up here instead of here, where we thought we'd end up, is because we've taken all these decisions based on advice from other people, or we're trying to please our parents, or trying to look up to someone else. And, it's before you know it, you end up with a mountain of resentment for where you are, and you're nowhere near where you thought you'd be. You don't feel like you're yourself, and therefore you want to escape quick. You want to get back to being that 7-year-old kid. So there was a time when I was learning to drive, and I said to my stepdad, "Shall I learn in a automatic or a manual car?" And he said, "Well, learn in a manual, because then you can drive both." And I didn't really look too much into it, but I just took his advice without questioning it. It took me twice as long to learn because it was more complex. It spent more money on lessons because it took me twice as long. As soon as I passed my test, I got an automatic car. I don't even like driving. And now all cars are going automatic, right? So it's a small example, but imagine the compound effect of all of the little resentments that take place. We make 35,000 decisions every day. Imagine the compound effect of every decision being based off of someone else's opinion that doesn't quite suit what you want in life. And that is why people have midlife crises. They get to a point and go, I need to become financially free. I need to passive income. I need this, that, and the other to get out of this quickly. Same, they go to drink, drugs. I need a holiday. They need all these escapes. The elephant in the room is do what you want to do, in the first place. You can monetize anything these days. I'm not being funny. This is just a remarkable world that we live in, where you can just talk about something you're energized about and monetize it. Like it is. So if you do that, you then don't seek the financial freedom side, because if you can monetize and pay, and again, the next step is like, once you're doing that, what is your lifestyle? Are you buying a Ferrari because you're looking up to someone else, or do you actually like Ferraris? Don't get it, and as long as your lifestyle costs are congruent to who you truly are, and you're not doing it to impress and please and appease, then you can just do whatever you want, wherever you want, and have the things that you want from the money that's coming in from doing that. At that point, you don't ever subordinate to this idea of retirement, or there's not a retirement. It's, I'm living, paying for the things that I love, and I'm getting paid to do what I love. And, you're doing that. So the financial freedom element actually is just having that number that you spoke about to cover that cost should you need to stop, should you have an accident, or should you need to spend some time with a ill relative or something like that. And that is like the final piece in the puzzle, but it's actually the last piece in the puzzle. Build your life right, do what you love, monetize, systemize, and delegate and automate all of the uninspiring stuff in whatever job or business you create. Pick the things that you would love to do every day without even being paid. And when you get to a point where you're just doing those few things, it doesn't feel like work. You don't need to escape that. That is your life, and you should be in a place where you love doing that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's the short answer.
Yeah. So most people basically have got it wrong because they're starting with the financial aspect first.
Because they don't like what they're doing, and they're not mentally free, and they're not doing, they're doing uninspiring shit every day.
So the first step was effectively, you're saying, to go for mental freedom. Then it was
movement freedom, mobility freedom. Yeah.
So just talk us quickly through, if people are starting wrong at step number 3.
Yeah.
Give us a quick lowdown on step number 1 and then step number 2, that they should be doing it in the right way.
So the reason that you're not mentally free is because you've got some kind of memory baggage that is stopping you from taking calculated risks. So something might have happened in the past that you've labeled as a negative thing, and you've now got a fear of doing that in the future.
That was me for 10 years. I spent 10 years in an office with a team of 15 people. I didn't want anyone better than me.
Right.
Because, I didn't want to recruit people better than I was.
Yeah.
That was obviously a school mentality, as we realise. I was working 12-hour days, 6-day weeks, because that's what my dad did for decades. And having had a whole team in my office, when I started again in January 2016, I was like, I do not want anyone around me. I want to build a business with one person in my office and everybody self-employed up and down the country.
Yeah.
And from 2016, I achieved that. Luckily, we got locked down, didn't I? So that made it easy to recruit externally. But I had 20 people up and down the country. And then when mum died, realised actually this is not the best and most profitable model.
Yeah.
But I had grown my mindset and improved myself as an individual, that now I've got 10 people in an office.
Yeah.
you know, so it kind of emphasizes that very quick mindset thing. So
that's
go back.
Exactly it. So memory baggage, seeing events for what they were. An example is, you know, imagine you come in, find your wife cheating on you or whatever, right? And it's like the worst thing. That's the worst event that could ever happen to me. And then, you know, you get a fear of going out dating. You know, you don't trust people. And then 20 years later, I say to you, was that the worst thing that ever happened? And you say, no, it's the best thing. Absolute best thing that ever happened to me, because I met this person, had these kids, traveled these places, got this life, this house and all that. So the fact that it took 20 years was a complete inefficiency, because it was just a thing that happened. Imagine if you could see like the good or the lessons in it straight away, instead of taking 20 years to realize that it wasn't a bad thing and it wasn't a good thing. It was just a thing. So there's lots of things like that that hold people back from living the life that they want, because they're labeling past events incorrectly, unjustifiably. You know, they've got unjustifiable fears based. It's not justified.
It's also bad education though as well, because I always remember, like in my parents as I was growing up, you know, as my mum's passed away now, but my mum was always the squirrel and the saver, and that was because they went through bad times. So she was always like, I'm going to squirrel and save the money. My dad was always the risk taker, but he was also the one that said to me when I turned 17, oh yeah, just get a car loan, because as long as you can cover it, you're fine. Oh yeah, just get a credit card, because as long as you can pay back the minimum, you will always be okay. You know, in my early 20s, hanging around with Ipswich and Arsenal football players who were earning a lot of money at the time, you know, I got myself into like 45, 50 grand's worth of debt, because I was trying to live a lifestyle with those guys, buying clothes that I didn't really need, going out and spending £100 3 times a week. You know, and it was only when I actually was able to build a business and pay it all back and everything else. Yeah. But how much of that mindset belief actually comes from being that 7-year-old and seeing your parents as you grow up and adopting their stupid bad
totally. We're impressionable at the end of the day. Like, it's easy to say to a 7-year-old kid, you know, do this, do that. They won't believe the candle's hot until they touch it, right? So they have to actually go through some pain.
Yeah.
It's great that your parents, it's fascinating that I believe partners, like, opposites attract, but I truly believe that, like, finding partners like that have everything in common, I just think's a bit weird. Like, I'm much more of a diverse person. I believe in diversity, where
100% opposites attract. My best mate is exactly like my wife, right, and his wife is exactly like me. Right. If me and Nicola were in a relationship together, that shit's going wrong.
You've got kids, right?
Yeah.
And I bet they're polar opposites of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got more than two.
I've done the stupid thing of having 4, mate.
Yeah, right. But my kids are polar opposites of each other. Yeah. And it's because we want the best chance of survival as a unit. So my wife does all the crap that I don't want to do. I do all the crap she don't want to do. And my kids are complete opposites of each other as well. So we've got this.
Do you do blue jobs or pink jobs though?
Oh, God.
Like Aisha does the bins, I do the beds.
Right. Yeah. My wife does everything. Grass, cuts the grass.
Aisha, you better listen to that.
But going back to your question, you know, a great exercise you could do to figure out who you are, because I suppose a lot of people be going, well, I don't know who I am. You know, what do I want to do? A couple of things. Go through your camera roll on your phone, go through all the years of the photos that you've taken over the years. And there will be a common theme of things that you choose to take photos of. And when you choose to take photos of something, that means you've been inspired in that moment to go, that's exciting to me. And you take a photo, right? And I'm not talking about like your food, or it might be food, but it might be kids, the mountains, animals. It might be food, you know, it might be photography. So there will be a common theme there of things that are truly important to you. If you combine that with asking yourself questions like, if I was to phone up your friend and ask them who you're the go-to person for, you know, what would they say? What's the answer to that question? What are you the most reliable in? You know, what are you the most knowledge about that they'd ring you for advice on? What do you spend most of your disposable income on? What energizes you? What would you do on Monday morning if you didn't have to work and didn't need money? What's the first thing you'd do? If you answer all those questions, you'll see a common theme. And it'll, you know, with my wife, for instance, is animals. Like, she should just work with animals. That is her thing. She picks worms out the road to rescue them from being run over. You know, she's that level. And there's no doubt in anyone's mind that she is the animal lady, right? And everyone's got a thing. Everyone's got something. It gets clouded by what we think we should be doing, and you might have to dig a bit deeper, but you'll find a theme there. And when you do that, that'll be closely correlated to what your purpose is in on this planet. You know, it really will. And then the good news is you can monetize it. So the mobility piece is making sure that once you're doing that and you're speaking about what you love and you're providing service to people in terms of something you find inspiring, is to then not get bogged down with uninspiring crap. The E-Myth book, it talks a lot about this, where the technician becomes, the business owner, and then the business is the technician, and now the technician's doing the admin and the emails and the thing. And there's a great quote: when you value your time more than your money, you end up with plenty of both. And I think if you can just sacrifice and play a little bit more of a long game, some of the profit, the immediate profit, and pay that into doing all the uninspiring stuff, which is something I've done from day one. Like literally when I was 14, I did this. But if you do that, you end up just doing things that you enjoy. And I'm not saying it's like all things you enjoy. You're obviously going to have some bad days, but...
Yeah, I call it the 80-20 rule. 20% you're going to take on some shit, but you try and delegate, you still find a new 20%.
Exactly. But most people's days, you look at it, and if they do a time study, 168 hours in a week, you're asleep for, 40% of it. Every hour on your phone, set an alarm. Every hour it goes off, just write down what you was doing. Do that for a whole week. And what you'll realize is, one, you'll be slapped in the face by like how raw that information and that data is, like 3 hours on TikTok or whatever it might be. But after a week, you've got a list of tasks there that you can now prioritize in what you like most and what you don't like most. And then you can start prioritizing delegating that, work out how much it would cost to delegate each of those things and start doing it, right? Because what you'll find is 80% of your time, you're doing the crap that you don't want to do. And 20% of the time, maybe even less, 10% of the time, you're doing things that you would choose to do every day. And you need to flip that round. If you can flip that round and you're doing what you love, then that's it. That's the goal to me. People say they want freedom. Well, sort that bit out and you'll feel free.
Yeah.
Because you won't be doing the emails and you won't be doing the admin, or the cleaning or the thing, Freedom comes from being able to structure your day, prioritize to your own values. Like in lockdown, we got locked in our houses. Arguably, we were less free, but everyone felt freer because they didn't have someone watching down their net. They could prioritize, organize their day in order of what they wanted to do first. They weren't keeping up with the Joneses because there was no one to show off to. They sold off all the stuff that they didn't need to make them realize what made them happy. And they really got a sense of what that freedom feels like. And there was a survey done where when we were coming out of lockdown, they asked, would you prefer to go back to the office or take a pay cut? 56% of people said they'd take a pay cut. So to me, that's more than half of people actually would prefer the mobility freedom than being stuck in a cubicle office, so
orientated. Yeah.
So those are the two main ones. And then, as I say, financial freedom is just about.
So what was the mobility freedom? Because you covered off the mindset piece, and we do exactly the same. Like we get our clients when they join us to assess their week in 30-minute increments, and it's like red, green, amber. Yeah. In terms of what you want to delegate, that also helps to create the next person's job role. Yeah. It's also part of our systemized piece is we give them technology that effectively put your holidays in first, put your summer holidays with your kids, put sports day in first, put in your gym sessions, put in a walk. Because if you use automated calendars and people have to go through that booking system, your life then gets prioritized. And if you treat the personal life like an appointment, you wouldn't miss a sales appointment. No. If secondary to that, you treat your on the business work as an appointment. I need to create a video. I need to do the highest value activity that moves the needle. That gets prioritized, and that enables you to create more revenue that then gives you more freedom. Or we actually focus on profit, and then you have the choice of freedom. Do I invest and create more freedom, or do I invest in the next layer of growth? Yeah. So
mobility freedom is basically is measured in time and space. So mobility and passivity. And the best example I could give is like a restaurant is the worst situation you can be in because it's not mobile and it's not passive. Right.
And all of Gordon Ramsay's programs look like an absolute
nightmare.
Hell's Kitchen.
Exactly that, right? It's like the worst business model unless
people love it.
Unless you love cooking, right?
Correct,
unless you love food, and then that's your thing. But for me, in a world we live in today, to be tied to one geographical location where your leads are based on whoever walks past the door and your opening hours are 9 till 8 or whatever, and then there's limited tables in the thing, that's just a recipe for hell. Like that is like, you're basically exchanging time for money at that point. So it's not mobile, and it's certainly not passive. You have to be there running that thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take, investing in an index fund, for instance, takes you probably 5 minutes to set up. It's automated. You get an income from that. You get a return from that, and it's managed by someone else. And, that's, you can do it from anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's completely passive. Of course, there's going to be, an income difference on those things. But what I think is important is whatever it is you're doing in your role, and you just said you're training your team this now, it's really easy to actually figure out how you can make something more mobile first. And once you figure out how to make it more mobile, you become more free anyway. You feel more free.
Yeah.
Have you read 4 Hour Work Week?
No.
There's a book by Tim Ferriss called 4 Hour.
I know what it's all. I know the concept.
Yeah.
And all that.
Well, the first half of the book is basically how to become mobile, and he's basically persuading his boss to work from home. COVID solved that, for most people. And then the second half of the book is, once no one's watching him, is how to become passive. So he delegates and automates all of it. He uses his income to pay and outsource his work, basically. Yep. And that is that whole mobility and passive piece. But the most important thing is you want to get to a point where you're just doing the things that you enjoy, where it doesn't feel like work, and then delegate and automate and systemize the rest. And once you can do that, you've got mobility freedom. You can do it from anywhere. And that's absolute key. That's one of the most, that is more important than the financial element. And then the financial element is how you manage the income that you generate. Yeah.
I get that. I think actually, if you take care of the first two, you rightly so, then it makes it so much easier, in my experience, to achieve the financial one anyway.
One, because you're not so stressed about achieving financial freedom. In the first place, it's like, let's just do it.
It naturally happens. You work on higher value activities. So I want to come back to 2 points. The first being that mobility freedom, because a lot of mortgage advisors, say, have a shop front, or they rely on a local brand presence. And I also want to come back to the fact of, we have a lot of financial advisors, and I hopefully want to go against the grain with regard to your investing strategies versus perhaps what they're testing. But for people who are obviously listening to this now, we've spoken about the here and now. You mentioned being a 14-year-old. This can't have always been you can't have always been free. There must have been a time where you've had your negative emotions and triggers. So take us back to that point, and then tell us a little bit about, where did things start to switch, and what were the steps that you put into place to do that switch?
Okay. So I'll go back to my childhood. My earliest memories, my dad had left before I was born. He had knocked someone else up. It was me and my mum on a council estate. Bailiffs always knocking on the door, no electricity. We had to hide behind the sofa and all this kind of stuff, right? They're my earliest memories. And they say your character's developed by 7. And I think that we value most what we perceive to be missing most as a kid. And for me, that was security. So it was just security. I didn't know anything about money. It was just like, I don't have any stability. I don't know where we're going, where we're coming or going. I just want security. I want to know things are safe. And that's really what I took into my life, into, my adolescence and so on. There was a period of time when my mum was trying to make ends meet. I'd be dropped off at this guy's house called Joey Pyle and Shirley Pyle. Lovely. I thought they were lovely. Turns out he's one of the most notorious gangsters in London. And he was, Ronnie Cray's best man. And I would spend my days hearing screaming and shouting in the house, plate smashing and all this kind of stuff, right? So that didn't help. And then when I was 13, there was 2 coincidental events that happened on my estate that we lived on. One, every Friday at the foot of the block of our flats, all the kind of mothers meeting, they used to congregate, talk about the week, moaning. And I just used to pick up on this kind of negative view around rich people and money, right? That
still happens today.
It still happens today. And I wasn't particularly hearing out for like money, but it was like, I'm rich, but rich, it was that kind of vibe. And the reason I picked up on it is because at 7:30, this guy called Roy used to come down.
Yep.
He used to collect everyone's money and go and do a syndicate lottery, right? And for the next 10 minutes, everyone's face would light up about how amazing it would be if they won this money. And I used to think, that's weird. They're saying money's bad, now they're saying it's good. And I just remember thinking, that's really odd. Coincidentally, that year, leading up about 6 months before my 14th birthday, I really wanted this Mongoose Sniper BMX, right? And I photocopied the brochure and put loads of things around my flat to like give my mum hints. My mum and my stepdad, they basically said, look, it's 210 quid or whatever. We can't afford the whole thing, but if you somehow raise half the money, we'll buy you can go and get the bike and go and collect it on the 20th of October. So I was like, deal. So I went down to there's this green, like triangular green on our estate where all the cars parked around, and I thought I'll just wash a car. So I went and washed this car, one car, all day. It took me all day. I didn't want to get like rejected. So she gave me £5, this lady called Lynn, and £2 tip. And I went up into my room that night, and I said, I was with my friend, and he said, I'll help you. And I was like, I don't really want to pay you. I don't want to pay you. I want to get this bike quick. Anyway, my stepdad came in the room that point, and something made me give him all my earnings. And I said, could you get me another bucket and sponge? And the next day we washed 4 cars. And then within 4 weeks, I had 4 friends, and they were washing the cars, and I wasn't washing cars. I was just doing the fun stuff. I was knocking on the door, really like communicating with everyone. Is it great? Booking for next week, taking the money. And at that point, I felt like I'd discovered fire. It was like, this must be why they're miserable about money. They can't be using it properly, because I'm getting what I want. It might take a little bit longer, but I'm still going to get what I want, and I'm not having to do anything.
Not doing the heavy work.
I'm not doing anything. And it just stuck with me. It was just like, wow, this is incredible. This, as I say, I felt I'd discovered fire, because I wasn't surrounded by any peers or inspirational people. It was like really down and outs and, all sorts of walks of life. And I had no one to look up to, but I remember thinking, this is great. This is amazing. So I just took that philosophy into my work, and when I got a job, I just very much like, right, how can I not do the crap? And even that I was going to be a fireman, that was my dream at first. I wanted to be a fireman.
Delegate someone else to go and help.
Yeah. But I was trying to get into the fire brigade, and it took me ages and ages. They were really strict at the time. I kept failing the interview stage. So I was working as an electrician on this, in a company. And by the time I got into the fire brigade, I was earning more as an electrician, so I had to turn it down. But I thought, I don't want to be an electrician forever. So immediately I was like, right, how do I not be on the tools? And it was just like, right, I need to delegate this. I need to learn this, and this. And that was it. And that has basically been what I've done till I was 29, and I didn't have to do anything. But that was the journey.
The biggest thing that you've said there, which is going to hit our audience, is they value the being the advisor and the person who speaks to the client and gives the advice. Whereas actually, that's the bit that can be delegated. That's the bit that anyone can do. And that in my own journey has been exactly the same thing. I didn't do it as young as you did. I did a paper round for 2 days and then made my dad drive me around to basically realize I'm not riding my bike. This takes far too long. And he did. And then I sacked it off. But what I realized was actually it's more efficient for me to be able to go and speak on a stage, do some networking, have some conversations, do some videos, drum up some leads, and then give more leads to 5 people where I don't necessarily have to do the 16 to 20 hours of laborious fact-finding, research, delivery, processing, chasing. And that was my first step of, getting off the hamster wheel.
Yeah. You do it really well as well.
Needing to do that.
You basically, you promote your idealisms and your philosophies and your methodology, and people buy into that. And then once they're bought into that, they can't really go anywhere else because they can't compare you to anyone else. Therefore, anyone in your team can then onboard people, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I can't compare this to anywhere else because you've got your own system. So therefore, anyone can.
The biggest mindset trap though is like, Jason's the one who knocked on the door to clean my car. He's the guy who's the expert. So he needs to clean my car.
Right.
Whereas what the guys listening to this don't realize in that story is exactly the same as I did. When you knocked on that door and said, I'm going to get Monty or Kiefer to wash your car because you made that introduction, the person was opening the door was perfectly fine with that. In the same way that if I go out and drum up all the mortgage leads and all the inquiries, when I turn around and say, Jason's going to be the person who's doing your mortgage because he's the one who's done £1 billion worth of lending, blah, 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 blah. Actually, they're buying the process and the person.
Yeah.
And because I'm the value person, they've handled that introduction.
Yeah.
That's a huge mindset thing for our audience.
Oh, mate.
That they also are fearful of doing what you did, the networking, the door knocking. I did door knocking for days. I know if I knocked 10 doors, I'd get 1 appointment.
Yeah.
And it's always the numbers game is so key to it.
But what you've done is,
but high value activity.
Yeah, high value activity. But one of the biggest hacks to level up the freedom is to teach the teachers. So this is the best move you can make in any business. If you're the technician, well then how do you teach people to teach the technician, right? And then how do you teach the teachers? And you can always move up and up and up. So like, if you're a consultant, how can you teach people to be consultants? Yeah, and it's such a obvious but easy level up that removes you from all of the clicky stuff.
Yeah.
And education will always be there, and people will always pay for education, but you can serve more people, systemize it, automate it, make more money. And at the end of the day, income is directly correlated to the amount of people you can serve. Like there's only one way to get money, and that's from another human. And you either beat them at a sport or a poker game, or you serve them and they give you the money. And you know, this is why it's very difficult for people like nurses to say, well, you know, nurses should be paid more money. Well, they save lives, yeah, but Ronaldo selling 1 million tickets in a football stadium has served more people. There's no morality issue. Like, there's no morality thing about money. Money is the fairest game in the land. You can get as much of it as you want, or as you're willing to serve. So serve more people, get more money. That's it. Teach the teachers.
So did your first business as an electrician then effectively get you investing financially that then gave you that residual income, that passive income that you needed to then continue on since 2019,
Yeah.
financially free?
So obviously, what I said, I valued security, right? So I had this idea. I was driven to be financially independent. I wanted stability. I wanted security. I wanted to, if I ever had kids, I wanted to be able to provide what I didn't have. And then when I was 22, found out I was going to have my first son, who's now 20. You know, and at that point, it just put a rocket up my arse. You know, I was like, right, I've got to take this seriously. I was always talking about it. I was saving. I was very smart with money. But I was fascinated with Microsoft Money. It was like this program. I loved Excel. I've always loved like Excel and spreadsheets and stuff like that. But Microsoft Money was basically this thing where you could put in your income and all this kind of stuff you're spending and get all these beautiful charts. And I was obsessed with it. And then I figured out that actually, if I invest 10% of my income at 10% per year, 20 years, I'll replace my income with the return on the investment. And I was like, 20 years? That's weird. You know, they don't teach that in school. They teach you to go work for 45 years. But figured that out. And then when we found out I was going to have my first son, I was just like, I need to speed up the returns, reduce that 20 years down, basically. And I felt like a failure. I felt like, I can't have a kid now. You know, I really don't want kids now. That's how I felt. And got my head around it. He came along. It was next level. I was like, right, I need to learn this. I need to learn this. So I tried everything. I went from savings, index funds, ETFs, real estate investment trusts, large cap stocks, medium cap stocks, you know, into soybeans, futures. Like I was doing everything until the point where I realized that I needed to grow my income to dump into the thing to speed it up even more, which is when I started a business. And because I was abusing the business, because I wasn't treating it like to grow and scale, I was treating it to pay myself every penny to dump in so I could get out of work. That became stressful because you sort of need a new manager. You can't afford a new manager because you paid yourself too much money. You know, so it was like this rocking boat that was about to sink. And then I thought I need something really speculative. And that's when I looked at online poker, options trading. And then I blew about 40 grand in Forex trading. Eventually became good at that after about 3 years. And then at 29, I'd matched my living costs with my swing trading, my investment returns, and other little bits and pieces that I had that were passive. And it was at that point where I was like, breathe, you know. And I wasn't earning, I wasn't even, my lifestyle costs weren't a lot. But the magical thing is when I freed up all the time and I didn't need to go and work anymore, it's almost impossible not to earn more money. You become like, you're in this place where you're more creative. You know, you see opportunities that you wouldn't have seen before because your head's buried in the sand, and you meet people and you just see things differently. You become more calm, more poised. You give off an energy that people seem to be magnetized to. And you then end up creating things from a place of like, this will really help you. You know, and you're not worried about the money. You're just like, this will help you. And then they go, well, that really helped. And they tell someone and they tell someone. And it's just a strange thing that happens when you're in.
It's like the analogy of being on a plane, isn't it? It's like you got to put your own mask on first before you then help everybody else put theirs on.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So you essentially started to effectively go against what everybody watching this would do in terms of you need to use an advisor, someone who's an absolute expert, and taught yourself how to invest, where to place your money, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been like, I didn't do well at school, right? So I pulled both my kids out at 14 because they weren't really getting on at school. And I've done all right. You know, so it was really hard for me when they say, oh yeah, I really hate school. It's hard for me to say to them, I know, but you've got to go. You know, you've got to do it. Everyone's got to do it. Because I didn't believe that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that belief because I don't believe you have to go to school. And right now, I think schools, well, it's a weird thing, right? Because we won't go into that, but it's a weird time where most of the things they're studying for won't even exist. But did that. And I've never been a fan, going back to your question of like a piece of paper certification. I just learn stuff. I've learned everything I know on YouTube, mentors, coaches. You know, I've learned so much. And you learn it by deep diving and immersing yourself in it until you become an expert. You're more of an expert than any curriculum, you know, or any exam paper that would give you. You know the ins and outs of it because you've just, you know, immersed yourself in it. So I learned through that. I learned by getting with mentors, sitting next to, you know, people who had done it, lived and breathed it. I was lucky enough to know a guy called Clive, who was an institutional trader. I sat with him. He couldn't actually tell me how to do it because institutional trading is much different to retail trading. They move the market. We just ride the waves, right? So he says, look, I can't tell you what we do because it just won't work for you. But this kind of thing happens. This kind of thing happens. This kind of thing happens. And I was like, right, I'll just build my own rules. And I would test markets for weeks and weeks on end until I'd figured out how to, you know, place trades and build rules that would give me an edge over time. And that was really it, you know, so it was all self-learned, just mentors and coaches.
And learning that, which again is another mindset thing for these guys, because I had that too, but it's like, I've now spent 335 grand on my own personal business development since 2016, but the knowledge that you gain compounds. You also get to test and measure your own strategies and tactics and therefore formulate your own blueprints, playbooks, paths, whatever. Yeah. But those skills do continue to compound consistently. Plus you're building your network, which then adds in additional opportunities for sale or brand building or relationships or whatever it is.
Your brand's your certification. Like that's it. Your results and the view that people have on your brand is your certification.
So what do you value more then? We talked about obviously mindset freedom and financial freedom. How does someone choose at whatever stage they're at, whether they put money into self-education or whether they start putting money into something that's going to pay them a 10% return?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're doing what you enjoy right now, then your job is to grow the kitty, which means you might look at speculations or you might look at investments. But if you're not doing what you enjoy right now, your first job is to invest in your knowledge. You put your money into your mind and your mind fills your pockets, right? It's like, if you don't, people say to me about like, what should I trade? What should I buy? What's an investment, right? Look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin's only ever gone up.
Yeah.
Right? We're at the highest point now. It was the lowest point when it came out and it's only ever gone up. But millions of people have lost money in Bitcoin. Why? How? Because they don't understand it. You don't know why you're putting your money into it. Therefore, every time there's a little dip or something isn't going, you get scared and you pull your money out because you haven't earned your right to that level of risk. You haven't got the mindset to keep up with that volatility in your money. So that's the answer. If you don't know about it, learn about it. If you need to learn about it, pay someone who knows about it and learn. Bypass the amount of time it takes to learn it so that you can get there quicker. And that's it. So we get like 80 years on the planet, 90 years on the planet, or whatever, 120 you're going to live to probably.
That is my world. That is what I say to people as well. I'm a third of the way through my life.
Right. So we've got this much time. We've probably got about this much time to, you know, kind of enjoy it and thrive. But the goal is to get to your ideal life. You want to get there as quick as possible so you can live as much of your life as possible in that ideal phase.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is just to bypass like mistakes. Like you want to go as the crow flies to the result. And the way you do that is just to not do the stuff that don't work. And the way you do that is just to pay someone who's done it that can quickly go, do that.
Yeah.
Because I've done all the mistakes. And that should be your priority. That should be what you should be spending most of your money on. You know, if you're not there yet, your priority and your biggest expense should be paying someone who's got a result that you want to give you the answer.
To get it there quicker.
I mean, when you say it like that, it's obvious. But
Yeah.
so many people just don't. They're like, it's really expensive. I tell you what's expensive. Living a miserable life.
Yeah. And being in the same destination year after year after year after year.
For sure.
And not actually moving forward or progressing. So where do most financial advisors, particularly, get their investing strategies wrong? And I know you can't give financial advice, so we're going to caveat that now, blah, 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 blah. But in what you have seen and in people that you've worked with or that you've taught to trade, because obviously that's a big thing of what you do now is teaching people how to trade. Where's it going wrong? Where do financial advisors make, because obviously they make a percentage off of the back of everything and do the annual reviews and there's a whole host of compliance. But what's your strategy?
Do you know what?
So I'm sitting here now as a startup business owner. I'm in my first year. I've got to the point of maybe earning $5,000 a month. What is my, not business growth journey, because I tell people enough about how to do that, but what is my plan to start, obviously investing in myself, number one, is what we've just discussed, but how do I now start growing my wealth?
Right. So, when I was in work, I had a financial advisor and I had an accountant. They both watched me leave that business one day and they were like, what's happening? And I was like, I don't need to work anymore. And they were like, wow, and now they still are an accountant and a financial advisor advising the same things. And I think even when you look at big fund managers, they can't even outperform the market. So imagine this, there's like some skyscraper in London with some big shot fund managers and some billionaire goes in there to give them their money to manage and they can't even beat 10% of you. They can't do. I think that's criminal. So one, I always want to be in control of my own money and my own finances. Financial advice, I was forever told that, there's going to be a crash, there's going to be a recession, just ride it out, just, it'll come back round. And then 4 years go by to the recovery and you're back at break even where you left off, whereas I took the time to do the math and go, well, actually, if I invest more when it's crashing, by the time it comes into break even, I'm 46% up, whereas everyone's just back to where they were 4 years ago. So those kind of things that seem obvious were the sort of things that I was working on. But going back to your question, the easiest thing is literally I know you spoke about Profit First. There's a book called Profit First. I can never pronounce the author's name, but it's something.
Put your money in buckets and separate it all out.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a great strategy front, because one, you're segregating the revenue so that you can see it for what it is. But personally, you really want to have a investment bucket where you are investing, say, 10% as a starting point, increasing that 10% every 3 months, ideally, because that puts a little pinch on your lifestyle and you then acclimatize to it. It makes you want to go and earn more money, right? So then you sort of start growing that. And then the way that you manage that bucket is you build this pyramid from passive investments right through to speculative. And you want to kind of structure that and allocate that directly proportionate to your knowledge on the thing. So everyone understands a savings account, right? So put a lump in there and then maybe it doesn't take long to understand some index funds, right? So you put a bigger lump in there and then you might only understand a tiny bit about Bitcoin, or put 1% in there, put 2% in there, right? And what you'll do is you'll start to grow the account at a rate that outbeats inflation and outbeats the market, but you won't get that volatility that you can't handle, right? And then one day when you want to learn a bit more about Forex or Bitcoin, you can then allocate more of the fund because you've got more of a confidence. It won't keep you up at night. If you're investing in things that keep you up at night, you've put too much in or you don't know enough about it. If you're checking your phone at your charts, all that kind of stuff, and you're not present, you've got too much in there. You shouldn't be investing in that. And that's a great indicator. So bucket one is basically to buy assets. But buying assets, you can create assets as well. So you can invest in systems in your business, put it in that, put it into delegations and freedom. That's what I call a freedom account. The next account is your self-development. So the biggest companies in the world, the big blue chip stocks, they invest 10% into R&D every year without fail. Why? You should do that as well. 10% of your income straight into development, books, courses, mentors, boot camps, Audible membership, whatever it might be, right? Invest that, because what that will do is then it will just have this effect on your income. Your income will grow, the whole thing will grow quicker.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, just chuck 10% into self-development. If you don't not spent it by the end of the year, just make sure you go and spend it, and you'll have a great, you might go and do a 10 grand boot camp and just be, you learn more in a week than you've learned in the 10 years. And this
well, as long as you actually do the work, because most people don't do the fucking work.
That is true. That is true.
We've changed that now in the way in which we work with clients, and it's all based on accountability.
Oh, great.
It's a massive, massive shift I think so many people miss.
Yeah, amazing. And then the final account is your living. So the living costs, just by controlling your living costs a bit, as you said, not trying to keep up with footballers, you'll figure out how richer you are.
On credit cards.
Right. But you become much more... you become richer because you've saved some money. You're not looking up to other people, and you're controlling it and living within your means. Living within your means. I mean, there's something called debt to income ratio, and it is basically the ratio of your debt to your income, how much you're paying of your income to banks, and loans and IOUs. In Australia, it's like 200%. They're spending 200% of their income on debt. Denmark, 200 and something percent. UK is like 160% or something now. So get that down, you'll get there later. You can buy all the nice things later on. You just need to have a bit of patience and, you'll get there. But that's kind of a solid strategy, just setting up those three things, making sure you can see it for what it is. And then the investment account directly proportional to what you can understand.
Yeah.
And then when you've got a bit more free time, you might want to learn about stock investing, and then you get confident in that, you allocate more, right? And then because you understand it and you believe in yourself and you've got confidence in yourself, you won't then pull the money out when it takes a little dip in the summer or in a COVID or whatever. So if you can't grow your money, if you're growing your money at a rate that your mindset can't keep up with, your mind will stop you from growing the money.
Yeah,
you'll pull it out. Oh no, can't take that loss, when in actual fact, you can't afford to leave it in. That's why you're really pulling it out. Because if you can afford to leave it in, you'll reap the benefits. You'll reap the rewards of Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin's crazy. Absolutely crazy. 50% a year. Since
as long as you're buying it at the right time, though.
Well, yeah. But if you bought it any time, it's going to go up eventually, right? Or not financial advice, but it's gone up. Historically, it's gone up every time. So
it's like property. It's gone up every 10 years. It's gone up, 100% every 10 years or whatever it is as well. It's like, why do you not believe in property investing then? Or do you?
I don't. So my philosophy on property, real estate investment trusts is about as close as I get to property. And that's because it's liquid. So for me, liquidity is key. I want to pay to sit in my studio and play guitar and buy guitars and make some music and, go down the gym and buy the flipping a muffin and some coffee or whatever. You need cash to pay for all that, right?
Yeah.
When you put your money into a house, you've put your money into bricks, which are decaying and they need repair. And there's maintenance and all that kind of stuff. And there's tenants and there's headaches and the roof's falling apart and the grass needs cutting. That is going against an investment. So it's losing my money rather than growing it. And I can't pay for breakfast with it. So I can't cut the grass and go and pay for my muffin and coffee. It's not liquid. So to sell that thing, I have to rely on the property market, which might take 6 months to sell it. Right? So the feeling of freedom isn't there. In fact, financial freedom and buying a property is not correlated at all, because unless you've got 5 to 10 properties where they're providing a rental income, which is quite hard to get to. There's a lot of property advisors out there saying property is easy. I don't believe that. I've never seen that personally, and I haven't been in that world enough. But it's much less of a headache to not have physical things. Liquidity is freedom to me. I want to pay for my life, and I need liquid cash. I need things to pay for that life, and that's it. I don't want to save and have it all in bricks so that one day I can sell it. I want to live now. I want to enjoy every day. So that's really it. It's kind of this entropic and negentropic way of looking at investments. One's decaying and going against me, whereas if I put money in Apple, I'm going to sleep, and there's the brightest minds in the planet in California going, how can we outdo Spotify? Let's do this, let's build this, and I'm asleep. So that's growing while I'm asleep. And the grass needs cutting while I'm asleep. So it's just kind of, that's my view on the two.
On where it's at. So let's say, for example, then, if you've got a lot of property, because obviously I've had mortgage brokerage. A lot of our clients are business owners that are utilising their property, using their profits to put into property, into company loans, all of that, company structures, blah, blah, blah. You've got lots of people listening to this who want to go and be a mortgage advisor and go and buy buy-to-lets and do big deals and everything else. And then you've got the financial advisors who are obviously all about utilising profit into pensions and realising that, you know, if you're a business owner at this point and they're getting themselves to a point where the business has become profitable, they're working on their higher value activities. You know, I break down business into, you're a startup under 5K. You're kind of then at a self-employed point where you've maybe got one employee, you're admin, but you're still the bottleneck. You're still in a job because it's, you know, you're the person that most people want. You then go into kind of the lifestyle business arena where that's a good place to be. But if you're still in the early phase, team of 3 or 4, you're still a bottleneck. Whereas if you get to a team of maybe 10, 12, you've removed yourself a little bit. You've probably got a manager in there. You're starting to get profit now that you can utilize. And then you've got the lifestyle enterprise phase where it's, you know, you don't need to be there one day a week. That's where I've kind of got myself to, is this enterprise point. But if you're in that lifestyle business phase and you've got 50 grand's worth of profit left over after you've paid yourself your dividends and all of that kind of stuff, you know, where would you say to somebody, not being financial advice and all that kind of jazz, but what would you do in that situation?
Right.
Where would you put that money?
Okay. So before I answer, I just want to say that property is incredible. And I'm a trader in the Forex market, right? That's my skill. That's my specialist. And I can confidently put up to 40% of my net worth in my trading and make money. I believe that your skill, your speculation should be your skill. So if property is your thing, you're a trader, right? And you're like, I know where to source the deals. I know where to flip it already. I know how to do them up and refurbish them cheaply. I'm the trader. I'm in control. I've got the skills. If that's your speculation, stick it in that. You know, amazing. You're great. So the passive investment alternative in property would be buy-to-lets, where you don't really have to know a lot about it. You just buy a property, let it out, let someone manage it. That's passive and lower return, lower risk, and all the rest of it. If you're one of the people who just wants to go away from property, you know, you can still be in property. Like a real estate investment trust is a pool of property companies that are managed like the Premier League. So it's like there's a relegation zone and the top zone, and they're managed by great minds, and they're looking at these companies and seeing who's performing, who's underperforming. So you can invest in a slither of all of those real estate investment companies and appreciate the returns of the growth of all of those, which are diversified across maybe different sectors. And you're still in the property market. The only difference is it's liquid. You can withdraw the cash in 3 days, 2 days at a click of a button. And the beautiful thing about real estate investment trusts is, one, your guys will probably understand the vehicle, understand the market. And the second thing is there are sector specific. So like you could just specialize in senior living, which is like, imagine now, senior living real estate property trust, they're booming. You know, they're growing and growing and growing with the baby boom.
Popping up everywhere, baby boomers.
Yeah. So like there's almost a wave there of real estate investment trust just in senior living. So if you're a property person who wants to liquidate and be a bit more liquid, that's a great thing to start looking into and learning. And I'd recommend that. And, you might get, I've seen 20% returns from certain real estate investment trusts. There was one called Welltower Inc. back in 2018 that was just doing like 20% a year dividend yields. So,
but as someone, say for example, obviously the money's in the business.
Mm-hmm.
If you start withdrawing too much out, you become a higher rate taxpayer, which obviously then you lose a lot at the present time.
Okay.
I heard something the other day in terms of they're potentially going to be reducing the amount you can put into your ISAs now because they want you to put it into stocks and shares. Obviously, this is at the time of recording, and the benefit of not put the benefit of reducing the amount of interest you earn on your ISA is that it will put people to put it into stocks and shares, which will then feed into the UK economy. Is the thinking of the government at this time. What do you think in relation to, someone said to me about building, I've got 4 kids, so withdraw the money out, put it all into ISAs. But then when I've done the maths, I'm like, well, actually, I'm going to end up losing money by doing that because of the tax that I've got to pay to be able to do that. So how do you get the money out of the business to then be able to put it into these elements?
That's a good question. I mean, there are ways there's top codes that you can create that own licensing to your business, and you could filter out. So you pay the corporation tax at company level, move the money into the topco, and then invest from the topco, which you don't get taxed on. You only get taxed when you take it as income.
Yeah.
You could host the topco elsewhere, and have all the licensing of your intellectual property, everything come from that business in Dubai, say. We're really going into it now.
Yeah.
And I'm at a position.
I've been having a conversation very similar to that recently.
Right. I'm feeling like, I don't know about you, I just feel it's a weird feeling where I feel like my country just wants me out.
Yeah.
It's like I've done all right and I'm trying to, make money and trying to provide jobs and all this kind of stuff. And yet it feels like they're trying to get me out. The thing that I think will help the country, they're going against, and they're trying to make it very hard for like this wealth tax and just like really penalizing people who've done well, which is just bizarre because you look at places like Dubai and they just don't tax you.
No.
And then they know that if there's a mortgage advisor over there or a broker over there, they sell a property to a billionaire over here. The billionaire buys the property, the broker gets paid a cut, and he's going to spend that cut on a new car over there and new house over there.
Run by business people, though, isn't it? They're growth mindseted business people that want to see their economy growing and doing everything they can to reinvest and grow the economy.
But why don't we want to do that? The UK is a company.
Yeah,
that's how I.
Yeah.
And they can't even manage their books. So when you're paying tax is like investing in a company. If I look at a stock, I'll look at the balance sheet and the cash flow statement and the income statement, and I'll go, right, how are they using the cash? And I'll formalize a story that is a good stock to invest in, and I'll put my money into it, right? Well, if you look at the UK as a company, your tax is that investment. And I'm looking at people that can't even manage the books. So I'm going, why would I want to invest in this company anymore? They're not serving me. I don't even believe in the company anymore. So I'm going to put my tax somewhere else. I want to put my investment somewhere else. So tax is like your own investment. That's how I see it. And it's a strange time. Man.
Do you think people in that case then, taking the government as an example, do you think that someone who is, the government are supposed to be looking after our money, building the economy, but technically they've never run a business, so they don't really understand how to run a country financially.
They're just a load of school children in a playground. Like
it's similar to the belief of, someone who's bought one property, maybe done one trade that's paid off, and then starts teaching other people, how to be a property expert or how to be a trader.
These days.
Huge amounts of it. But what do you think in terms of the financial advisor then that technically hasn't built their financial wealth, but then is giving the financial advice to those individuals based on a couple of qualifications?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'd say it depends on the situation. I think a lot of people stop themselves from like taking the leap of embracing social media and things like that because they don't feel they're ready. But there's also beauty in sharing it before you're ready, like as in sharing what you've learned, like that vulnerability. So you could be learning and then you could be teaching what you've learned immediately. And I think that's great. I think people buy into that. And as long as you're congruent and you're truthful about that, people will look up to you because it's like, oh, he's leading the way. He's just learnt this yesterday and he's telling us that he's sharing it with us. That's a really valuable guy. I want to follow that guy.
Yeah.
I think that's great. There's probably minimal cases of that out on social media. The reality is they hear something, they got this Dunning-Kruger effect going on where they think they know more than they do. And then all of a sudden they're the expert. And that's awful. For me, I sleep best at night and look my kids in the eye when I'm congruent. When I'm doing and speaking and saying and believing and teaching what I actually do. That's the best way to live because, you just feel good. You
can't be called out either because
called out.
It's the way I did this like this, or I did 10 things, 9 things failed, and this is the one that works.
Yeah, you can't be called out. And you're 10 steps ahead of any imitator.
Yeah.
They have to wake up and try hard at copying you. Whereas you're just... there's not enough hours in the day for me. I don't even want to go to bed at night. I'm like, I just want to talk about this stuff all the time.
Yeah. It's the how I rather than the how you. Isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So, whatever route you take of those, I would just say make sure you're congruent. You're truthful and be vulnerable. Even vulnerability is just I think we're going to buy into vulnerability more than anything now, especially with AI.
Yeah, it's so fake, isn't it?
Yeah.
I said this in property stages that I've spoken on, and people say to me, the first thing that people asked me to help them was 2016. I started doing social media. I had no social following in 2015 whatsoever. Started posting, did video in the June, did 30 lives for 30 days in the July, won an award in my industry wrote my book in 2017, won an award in sort of 2018. And then the industry said, help me do some videos, help me do content. And that was the first thing I taught, was just, this is what I've done.
Yeah.
It's still foundational in terms of what we do. And that's, the congruent thing is I only ever teach in terms of stuff that I've actually done.
Absolutely.
Because I think it makes such a difference.
It does. You're going to have a hard time. Something internally is going to call you out.
Yeah.
You're going to have a fear of, if you, they say imitation suicide, right? So if you've got something that you're trying, not someone else, you don't want them to see it, or I don't want that person to see this, you're limiting yourself to scale.
Yeah.
You're going to try and hide things from certain people, and you're basically shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. So what's been some of the things over the last couple of years that have helped you to continually build your wealth and live this always free lifestyle?
Help me sharing information with people. So there was a period of time where 29 years old, didn't really need to do anything, sat about for a few years, became a great guitarist and ate a bit too much food. And then I started sharing everything because I didn't need money. And what I found out from then to now is the more you share, the more people want to pay you. And you can teach someone on YouTube 5 times the same thing and they'll want to pay even more to learn, to touch you.
Yeah.
To basically go, okay, implementation time, I need to be closest to you as possible. I'll pay whatever it is. So the more time you can get people to spend with you and the more you give away, the more you'll be paid. And we saw that last year with the YouTube thing was just, it was just phenomenal. Sat down one day and I said, how can I create a video where no one will have any questions after watching this video? They won't have one question. That was the challenge in my own head. And that was the energy that went into creating this thing.
And how do you not have to do sales calls? That was the other.
Yeah. How do
I not have to speak to somebody?
Yeah, right.
My dream too.
That was the energy that went into it. We spent a week recording this video, which was 2.5 hours long. And after 4 months of that video being out, it had been watched 1.6 million times. The retention rate was through the roof. YouTube were boosting it left, right, and center. And we had this tiny call to action at the end that was like, if you really must, if you really do want some implementation, we'll give you this 30-day challenge. It was 300 quid. And that's a pre-recorded video every day. They get drip fed with some homework. And 0.04% of the people that watched that in the first 4 months bought it. It was 5,000 people bought this 300 quid thing, 1.6 million quid. Most people don't earn most people earn 1.5 million in their life. So just even if I spent 8 years building YouTube and figuring out what didn't work and what did work, and on that 8th year you get a whole lifetime's income, it's got to be worth it, isn't it?
Yeah. People don't wait for the delayed gratification though, isn't it? It's like the social media thing. We talk about this all the time with our clients. It's like, I've done one post. I literally had a client recently, started his Instagram on a Wednesday. Saturday, he's messaging me going, this ain't working. I feel like I'm wasting time. Funnily enough, now he's absolutely flying. Leads are coming in. People are automatically booking in his calendar. It's been, a month, maybe 6 weeks tops?
Yeah.
He's like big and shit now. Another client of ours took 7 months. But when it bangs and it lands, it absolutely bangs and lands. But that's the typical delayed gratification, putting in the hard work first and then realizing the results later. You just did it super fast with YouTube, but
8 years it took me to get to 50,000 and then you get to go 500,000. So I learned a lot of what didn't work and then just applied what did work. But I tell you what about YouTube, about any social media actually, is what I've learned is people is so lucky if they see you, right? And you're trying to build fans that want to buy from you. So if you're timing one piece of content that happens to be when they go for a crap and scroll and just happen to see your thing, and that's one message that might be connecting with them that isn't quite relevant to them, even though you've got tons that is, you're pretty lucky if you've just hit them at that 30 seconds where you're saying something that they resonate with, that you're saying it in a mood that they're in, right? So one post, they're not going to see. 7 posts, they might see. 10 posts, they will see. But you need them to see about 50 of your posts for them to become a fan, right? And that means, based on all of those stats that I did anyway, it was about 270 posts you need to create 50 raving fans. And they need to see all those posts. So it's volume. Like, you need to just post and value. So these days I'll do an Instagram story, but I'll only do an Instagram story if I believe that I can take someone from an A to B solution in whole and go, this is what you do. Give everything away. There's no like, click this and get the rest. You know, it's like A to B. Some of my Instagram stories like half hour long.
I know.
But then one day I won't do that because if I feel it's a bit flaky or I don't feel like they're going to get a result from it, I won't do it. So it's not volume for volume's sake. It's volume and value. So you have to really try and help with every post and keep doing it, keep doing it and keep doing it. And then once you've put out 300 posts, then maybe you go, it's not working.
How's it doing?
How's it doing? Yeah.
It's an ecosystem as well, isn't it? Your marketing has to market your marketing effectively to get more. You know, Google did that research that it's 7 hours of time that people need to build up. Obviously, YouTube's fantastic because if you can get them to that one point, that's where they can binge. YouTube's that's the biggest advantage.
YouTube is the one. And again, going back to my whole philosophy around efficiency and effectiveness and delegations and automations, I just saw YouTube as the one that I could just do a long video, do it once, and then that could do all the social stuff. That could do all the vlogs and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and all roads just lead that back to that one channel. In
it's such a powerful platform, man.
Yeah, I loved it. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed obviously talking to you today and learning all of that. As it, I don't even know what time it is. How long will we be going? Hour and a half? It's not bad. So, as a final summary for the guys and girls listening to this, don't know if we can say that in today's day and world, but who cares? I've done it now. You know, where are you going next, and where do you want to leave people feeling? Obviously, we'll give people links to the books, put all that in the show notes. But for someone listening to this who's at that stage where they may be in the early phase, they've got some profit, they're thinking about investing, or maybe they're just in organized chaos, struggling. You know, what are a summary 3 steps that they put into place to become always free? And then what's next for you?
First one, just get close to your money. So understand what's going in and out. Like I think I've worked with people, I've worked with celebrities. You look at their bank and what you see is this spending behavior that's like a bit like it's almost like a fingerprint. You can tell where someone's self-worth is almost and where their standards are, right? So when it dips down, they're like work. And then when it overshoots, they spend it quickly. And if it only slightly overshoots, they spend it a bit slower. And there's basically this fingerprint where the money just goes in between. Now, on the high spikes, that's like a great bonus or a payday. And we've all got dream incomes and all the rest of it, but you might not always hit your goal income. But what you do is you hit your standards, because when was the last time you took a pay cut at a job? You know, you don't. Once you go up, you don't go back. So it's just a case of raising your standards. And the way that you do that is make sure that you're buying things that are congruent to you and where you want to go in life. Don't look up to other people. Just make sure you're in touch with what's going in and out. And then you can optimize all of your expenses. So there's an optimization process. This is something that I recommend everyone does. Go through what you're spending, right? Sounds boring, but this is cool. Go through what you're spending. Identify any hotspots, like things like you're spending more on than you thought, like coffee. You might go 90 quid a month on coffee, something like that. Gardener or whatever. Add them up. Add up all of the other high costs like, phone bill, electricity or whatever. Then go and negotiate or delete or delegate or, to get rid of those. But on the saving, put that into your self-development instead. So imagine you're still spending it, put it into your self-development or your investments and watch, it will just flip. When you look at your bank account every day, your money will grow up. It's impossible not to. It's like your Whoop or your Fit. You look at something every day, you get close to it, it will grow up because your attention and energy is on that thing. That'd probably be the best tip.
Yeah.
That's probably
but data-driven decisions. Data doesn't lie, people do. That's
what
I always
gets measured
say.
Gets mastered.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's one of those fun little tweaks. We do our shopping on Tesco's, so we do a weekly shop on Tesco's, and I've now switched away from Kellogg's, Walker's, and just going for the Tesco's own brand, even bread. But the amount that I've actually saved on a weekly basis to then put into other stuff, and actually crazy. Because it's even cheaper, they don't put as much crap in it either. So it's actually marginally healthier.
Yeah. But budgeting can sound like, I don't want to budget, but take that money, put it into development.
Yeah.
And it's
exactly.
like, you flip the inspiration. Like, it's like, okay, I saved and I'm having Tesco own bread, but I've got £10 more to pay for Audible or, or this book that I wanted or this course. It could be dramatic, the amount you can save. most people that do that exercise realize they've got 10% extra cash of their income, which 10% goes straight into investments.
Yeah. So we clear up our personal finances. We put some of that money into investing in self. Then we're going to start to put some of that money into investing in wealth, if we call it that, and future self, should we say, financially.
Yeah, I'd say work out what your living costs are once you've optimized. And then the first priority should be to save 3 to 6 months of that and just have that. And then anything after that, you drip feed into investments based on what you know about. So index funds would be the first one. Large cap stocks would be a second one. And I recommend everyone learns how to be a stock investor, because if you're a business owner watching this, it'll just make your business better. It'll make you understand how cash flow works.
Where does someone go to be a stock investor? Where do they learn?
Oh, me.
Is that on your YouTube?
You can go to my YouTube.
Go to YouTube and learn all that there. Yeah. So that's cool. We'll put that in the show notes and plug that as well in any case. And secondary thing to that then, once you've done a little bit of personal planning, is then start watching yourself on a day-to-day basis as a business owner. See where your energy highs and lows dips are in the day, because there's no point in doing sales calls when you're low in energy.
No.
Do your shit admin work at that point in time and the stuff that doesn't light you up.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a morning person, so all the crap goes in the afternoon where, I have my afternoon slump or whatever. But then also start to identify almost the red, green and amber. The points that the good old, what is it, the Eisenhower method, where it's like do, delegate, delete kind of stuff, and start then to map out what can you freelance out, what could you get rid of, what could you recruit somebody to do for you, providing you know your pounds per hour.
Yep.
That's a good second logical step for those sort of people. Would you agree with that?
100%. And in your product, just make sure you're getting results for people, because when you get results for people, they become the confidence for your salespeople. We've got a whole website called testimonials, and if we've got a sales manager or a community manager, we send them that. They look through that while they're eating their breakfast or whatever. There's no way that they've got any doubt that what they're selling is great, you know, and they just go, this many lives have been changed. I can just, with conviction, I'm almost talking to someone like, you're stupid if you don't get this, and your product, build a good product.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. Make the product great, the marketing will do itself.
Yeah. And then in that bit from what you said earlier, become the car washer or become the individual that as you start to do those higher value activities, I think the key job of a founder is to create more demand.
Yeah.
Like it's the bit that most people don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And that's why they potentially become an employee. That's why I've recently had a guy who joined me who was a founder and actually said, no, I want to be an intrapreneur rather than entrepreneur because I want the security, I want the safety. But that also means like each one of my guys, I'm pretty confident will say they have a hell of a lot of autonomy in their job because they're employed like a player on a football pitch to do a job. I give them the strategy like a manager would, and then I get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
I challenge them just because I enjoy challenging people and pressing a few buttons here, there and everywhere. Yeah, they're smirking behind the cameras. I thought they might. But it's only to make them better. It's only to make them perform better. So go and create more demand would be, I think, what is the next bit of building wealth. And that's only based on my own experience, is the more demand I create, the more leads we get, the more sales we get, the more applications we do, the more, you can then actually, and that's why I'm obviously congruent with you right there now this year, is because I'm at that stage where I'm starting to really appreciating it and investing in my wealth is probably the other phase.
Yeah.
I've said that to you before. It's like when I turned 40, there was that midlife crisis. I got a motorbike first, never said I would never do it, but also thinking about what do I want for my next 40 years?
I got one.
It's like, but it's like those little things. I got one because of snowboarding. It's like, it's one of those things that switches the brain off because you have to be in the moment. But I looked at my first 40 years and thought, right, what do I want for my next 40 years? What do I want to be different? How do I want to do? And it was to systemize my life. It was to then scale my life, but it was also to systemize and scale the business. And it was with the goal of financial freedom, always being free to wake up and go, actually, I don't need to work.
Yeah.
And I only want to choose the things that I want to do. I'm not 100% there yet, but every month, every quarter, I'm getting closer and closer to that.
For sure. We just on employment, we've got a team of 4.
Yeah.
And we bespoke write the contracts based on their values because we realised that people only go to work for them.
Yeah,
they don't go to work for you.
Yeah.
They just want to earn the money to spend on stuff that's important to them. So we do this whole value discovery process, and then we bespokely write a contract that helps them see that how by helping us get what we want, they'll get more of what they want, and then we just don't care. We don't have time. Like I don't know. Like our community manager will ring me up and be like, "Oh, I'm in like Czech Republic or something, or Brazil," and I'm like, "Oh yeah," and shit. And as long as the work gets done.
Outcome-based.
I don't care. Yeah.
Outcome-based jobs, effectively.
Create your own freedom in the role. We have to. It's that congruency thing with what I believe in creates great humans. So
yeah. It's something I've been thinking about a lot, and it's almost that thing of a bit like mobility freedom and mindset freedom and everything else. But in a typical job sense, like school, there's a 9 till 5 number of hours. There's 20 days worth of holiday. There's 8 bank holidays, and I've been really trying to put myself into a mindset of okay. What are the specific outcomes, KPIs, datas, or measures to turn around and say to my team, I don't care what hours you work. I don't care how many holidays you have. I don't care what you take off. You don't need to book, you need to book it just to let us know because we need to do that. But how can I structure it in a way that the business achieves its goals, but not through a 9 till 5 mentality so they can live almost always free doing a job that they love? Because then really they should never leave either.
The other,
it's a big shift, but I think it's going to come, particularly with AI and the world we're in now.
Oh yeah, I suppose the other, like the final boss of Always Free is I don't really care if we earn money in business, so I don't talk to my admin manager from one week to next, and then she'll be like, "Oh, we earned that much this month," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't care."
You got to that stage where you don't care.
We don't really care about the business money is just to me just a bonus. It's not because I'm not reliant on it. I'm not scaling. I don't care. What we earn. We could earn £5 one month and I don't care.
Yeah. And that's an important thing is one of the things that we should say is finishing this is like, start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
What is the number that you want first of all, then the lifestyle that you want to live, and then try and be as congruent to that lifestyle. And shit happens on a day, on a week. Like I always talk about short-term pain for long-term gain. It's like you might have to go through a month of eating shit and doing longer hours and doing all of that, but it should be to effectively go up the next step, to reach that next level. It might be training your team. It might be a problem that's happened in the business, a lead source that doesn't deliver. You lose an introducer in a mortgage sense or a partner or whatever it is, but do it in a way that's strategic. Know that I'm doing this for this period of time, and you can say to your wife and your kids, Dad's not going to be home for dinner for 5 weeks or for a week because this is what's going to happen as a result of that. We're going to put another 10% in. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm going to have more hours. I'll be able to do more football and achieve those goals.
Manage expectations is important as well, because then it's not as hard as it needs to be.
Yeah.
If everyone's on board, get people on board with you as well. I think that helps.
Definitely. Okay, well, let's bring this to a close then. Today is a really, really important day for you at the time of not recording, but releasing it. The book is now available.
Yep.
Where do the watchers, readers, listeners go to find this, and how do they start their journey on becoming always free?
Yeah, amazing. So if you resonated with anything we've said on this podcast, you can go and get a copy of the book. You can go to alwaysfree.com and you'll find it there, but Amazon, you'll find it there. But I've got a podcast called Always Free as well. So if you like the sound of my nasally monotone voice and want more hours of it,
ain't that bad.
Go there.
And we'll put links into the show notes as well. So you can go and grab a copy of that. We want to get Jason to number 1 to help him obviously to become an Amazon bestseller. This is your first book, right?
Yeah.
So, he needs to become an Amazon bestseller one time, not double like me at this point. But,
coming for you, mate.
Come in. I'm on the 3rd. I'm writing it. But yeah, go and help Jason. Let's support him. Let's get him up there. The book is a good guide in terms of the mindset, the principles, the practices, and also that triangle, I think, is you talk about it a lot on your Instagram stories as well. So follow Jason on Instagram and all his social media channels, and you can obviously go and check out his YouTube to learn about stocks and investing and everything else. But yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure to actually properly get to know you this year.
Yeah.
I now realise we're very similar. And my values of... Yeah, exactly. Well, as I say, it was more me in 2016 and where my mind was at the time. But the goals, the life, the aspirations that we're working towards are very, very similar in that respect.
For sure.
And
Thank you, mate.
Thanks very much for coming in. Love it.